Amazing. Good morning, everyone. Good morning and Happy New Year. This is the first time we are doing a Bump Boys Coffee Morning in the new year in 2024. Amanda, do you want for a moment stop sharing your screen so we can see your lovely face a little bit better? I welcome all you mummies on the call. It's so nice to see you again, and I can't believe my holidays are over. It's been a whirlwind, and I hope you enjoyed your Christmas break as well. It's always so nice, I find, to see Christmas through the eyes of a child. Like, there's nothing better. For me, it brought back the magic of Christmas for sure. Anyway, so I had a really good time. Hope you did too. And we have Amanda here today. Amanda, we really, really enjoyed your session on tantrums. It was such a good reminder of not only how to deal with them, but also how to take care of ourselves and take ourselves out of the situation a little bit, and how to deal with these big emotions, not just of our little ones, but also our emotions as well. So yeah, that was really good. And I guess now today we're talking about marital relationships. We'll talk about communications. We'll talk about how our relationships change, because they do invariably. And we need to find our groove as parents and as a couple with children as well. So without further ado, actually, Amanda, please introduce yourself, and then you can start sharing your presentation and taking us through what you've prepared for us today.
Sure. Any questions, please? I guess, did I message you? And I'm happy to answer anything you guys have. So yeah, I'm Amanda Sharoff, and I can share my screen here so you can see a bit to kind of what we're going to be talking about today and what this all looks like. Here we go. Let's get started. Participants can now see your screen. Okay. Well, there we go. All right. Exit. Click to exit full screen. Just start from the beginning. Here we go. And now we want to share it.
Yeah, perfect.
Beautiful. Good. So I'm Amanda Sharoff. We're going to be chatting today about marriage, or just even if you're not legally married, just the couples and your partner that you have. So when I say spouse, if it's a partner, whatever you might want to call it, I don't want to offend anyone, but I'll be using partner or spouse kind of interchangeably. A little bit about me. So I own Let's Thrive Therapy. You can follow along on Instagram. I typically work with women going through a life transition. So the transition of into motherhood, before motherhood, during motherhood. I love working with people with anxiety, and then obviously working on relationships. That's a little bit what we're going to be chatting about today. I'm EMDR certified, which is a trauma training, a trauma focus. And then I'm also Gottman couples certified. So if you ever go see a couples counselor, I would always ask that question. You don't have to come see me, but whoever you do go see, Gottman is kind of the head honcho of all of counseling. He does all the research. A lot of the research I'm going to share today is from John Gottman. And he's been doing it for 40, 50 years. I have a master's in counseling. I have all my credentials from the US. I have a license in the US. Actually, fun fact, in Singapore, you don't need a license, or you don't need any schooling to actually be a therapist.
Oh, okay.
Kind of interesting. In the United States, it's by state. So I'm only licensed to work in the state of Pennsylvania. So I can't go to Nevada or California and go work. It's illegal. I'd lose my license for that. So kind of a fun fact there. But in Singapore, there's no regulations on it. So that's an interesting fact. So I've been doing this for just over a decade, and I love it. It's the best job for me, and I love working with people. So let's get started. All right. So we're going to be talking about marriage and relationships today. And so this is what I found on social media about what marriage is, what society says marriage is. So take a look at these. There's a couple on here. I know which one that I resonate with very much. Johanna, I'm curious for you. Is there one that resonates for you?
Yeah, I love them all, actually.
I know, right?
Labor one is particularly funny.
I feel for my husband and I, 90% of being married is just yelling or shouting what from the other room. I mean, we live in a small apartment, but we're always in the other room, and it's like, what are you saying? We're screaming to each other. I feel like that's all that we do all day long. What did he say? You want me to do what? I grab what? So these are just funny things, but this is what society says marriage is like. So we can take that take it for what it's worth, little funny things. But I would love to hear from you. And Johanna, I'd actually love to get your advice too. What's the best thing about marriage and what's the hardest thing about marriage? So Johanna, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear from you. How can I ask how many years you guys have been together, or how many years you've been married?
So we met 34 years ago. So it's quite a long time. Married, we only jumped into marriage when our daughter was 8. So this is now 30. Sorry, I have to get my maths right. We got married in 2020, in 2001. So
Okay.
33 years. What? That doesn't make, anyway, a long time. A long time.
And you're probably, I'm guessing, I don't know your marriage, but probably a different person. Your marriage is different than it was 34 years ago, your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you just grow, it develops. There's so many new challenges that we find, especially as expats as well. I think this throws us into a whole different world, not having our usual network and so on. So that's been interesting. And I always say moving abroad either brings you together or you drift apart kind of thing. And luckily for us, it was the coming together a bit more and intensifying our relationship for sure. And that was like 25 years ago. So
thanks for sharing that. So maybe one of the hardest things about marriage for you, right? Like that, just the transitions, right? Transitions are hard.
Yeah, you know what? So let's start with the best thing. I think I lucked out because I married my best friend kind of thing. And so that's just been, for a long time, we didn't know if we wanted to take it to the next level, anyway, but we're just really, just really get along really well. What I find how it has changed is that we were our own people with very different interests. And so slowly we found common interests, something that interests both of us, like, I don't know, fine dining and art and culture. And I learned from him, he learned from me. So the best thing is that it's ever changing and exciting, is how I see it.
I love that.
And the hardest, I don't know. I don't find marriage hard, to be honest. Obviously, there are challenges, but when you've got a partner with you, it's easier to overcome those hurdles, I guess. So, yeah.
I appreciate that, right? You're doing it. You guys chose to do it together, which is what you'd want. So thanks for sharing. Yeah, I'd love to hear from other people. Yeah, comment if you can read any or see any of the comments. I'd love to hear it, because even if it's funny, if it's ridiculous, the best thing about marriage is, right, he always takes out the trash, right? Like silly things. We can laugh about marriage too. It's funny. Like life is funny, and I want to laugh about it.
Nice. Put something in the chat if you want. We'd love to hear from you.
I really would. I think it's fun. I'd really love your opinion, and I want to know who's on with us. So this is a roadmap. I love roadmaps because I want to know where I am. I want to know where I'm going. So we're going to talk about some marriage stats. We're going to talk about how different my brain is from my husband's brain, communication styles within that. Maybe sometimes we're being a little harsh. I'm totally guilty of this. Conflict 101. So actually conflict's a good thing, right? My favorite color is purple. Johanna, what's your favorite color?
Orange.
Great. So we have a conflict right now. What's the best color in the world, right? It's okay to have conflict. It's actually a really healthy thing because we're all different people, but how we manage that matters, obviously. And then we're going to talk about cognitive behavioral, a cognitive behavior triangle, something to think about as you're thinking about your partner or your spouse. So let's get started. So I've got some good news and I've got some not so great news. So 50% of first marriages end in divorce, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
It's one of the life's most stressful events. That's when they did research, they surveyed people and they said that was one of the most stressful things that they could ever go through. 90% of the population chooses to marry at least once. And this is the crazy part to me. 75% of people get divorced. They want to get remarried.
Okay.
So the first time it didn't work out, they're like, I'm hopeful. And I appreciate that about humans, right? We're hopeful people. And I love that about us, right? That even though we fail, we want to try again. So the most frequent problems we find with unhappy couples is there's poor communication, there's unrealistic expectations, and there's a lack of intimacy or loving feelings. So I've definitely had all three of those in some capacity in my marriage. I've been with my partner, my husband, over half my life. And so we've definitely at some point in our relationship, married and dating, have had these three problems for sure, because life has happened. So and I know there's obviously bump-wise, knowing your population or your audience, Johanna, there's a lot of moms on here, I'm guessing, or people who want to be moms. who are pursuing that. So the last statistic's pretty interesting, but we'll start with the beginning. Almost 70% of conflicts happen with unresolvable perpetual problems. So issues like, hey, I don't get along with your parents, or I don't want to travel, right? There are things that are just like, this is a problem that I'm A and you're B, and we don't really see eye to eye. 15% of those ongoing problems are gridlocked, meaning no one's willing to budge. It's like, this is an issue in our relationship. 67% of new parents experience a drop in happiness in the first 3 years of a baby's life. And Johanna, obviously, like, right, being a doula, you've been doing this for a long, long time. I wonder if you could speak to that. Do you see that?
Absolutely resonates. Absolutely. Because, it's, first of all, it's the sleep deprivation. Oh my God, it's so brutal. But then the next thing is, when you're in a relationship and all lovey-dovey and I don't know what, who talks about the kind of parent that you want to be? Right? So often the conflict arises from, we all have a different past, and we were raised in a certain way, and we carry a lot of that into our parenting as well. And so there's where clashes happen. And so that can be really, really difficult. And then for a lot of mummies, I feel for you, because it was the same for me as well. You're an accomplished professional being, and all of a sudden, all you do is talk about diaper creams and, nappy rash, all of these things. And you're like, where am I as a person? Like, is this all I am? A milk bank for my child? Or, you know what I mean? So this is absolutely, where moms can feel a little bit, unhappy and unfulfilled.
For sure. Yeah. I am so, so grateful for my kids. Hopefully that goes unsaid. We all are so, so grateful for that process, the journey it took to get there. Yada. But yeah, and then the reality is that it's really hard. And so I want to hopefully normalize that. I'm normalizing that to the world, whoever's listening right now. Yeah, that those first, and it's crazy that it's first 3 years. And I'm actually still in the thick of it, because I'm still within, one of my children is under 3. But yeah, some days you're talking about just stuff that you don't really want to be talking about, or issues, or there's tantrums happening when all you want to do is just like live your life and be happy that there are little humans that we're trying to raise, and there's just hardship. So hopefully this stat can make people feel like they're not alone, and they're not doing it, the wrong way, that if they aren't feeling 100% these first couple of years of having a baby, that it's actually normal. Not that it's a good thing, but that they're not alone in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on to the next slide, we've got a mom who contributed her thoughts on the best things and hardest things. So she says, being together with your best friend every day, the one who knows you inside out. So there's zero need for masks. So that's the positive of about her marriage. And the hardest is learning to put aside your need to be right, so that it doesn't get in the way of you working as a team. How beautiful is that? I love that.
Well done. Well done, whoever said that. Yes, we need to plaster that on somebody, for sure. The me to we. Yeah, I have to put my needs aside sometimes. That's hard. So we're going to get into this. So I want to start with this, and I know, please don't roll your eyes, but this isn't my research. I promise this is research. I have a bibliography at the end to show the good and bad and the ugly. So men's brains are 10% physically bigger than ours, and they're better at spatial processing and sensory motor speed. So that's something to take into account when we're talking about communication. And they only use the left side of their brain while they're communicating. They focus on these are huge generalizations. When they looked at men's brains, they did MRIs of the brain, and they saw, this is what they found. They typically are great at focusing on one task at a time. And hopefully you're all thinking about your partner right now. I know this is 100% my partner. Like, he's great at that. He can zone out anything else and be singularly focused. Whereas I hear the baby crying and I'm like, or the vacuum's going, or like I hear 30 things at one time. They can communicate pretty efficiently, effectively, and directly, and they have a clear purpose. They're very linear. They're more likely to solve the problems. Does anybody here have a Mr. Fix-It out there? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
I come home and I'm, venting about work. This happened or that happened, or oh, the traffic was awful today, and he wants to fix it for me. And sometimes I don't want it to be fixed. I actually just want to vent and just let it out. But I appreciate that men want to do that. It all comes from a good place. Their brain is wired from back to front, and they stay in their own hemisphere. There's not a lot of cross communication between the two hemispheres. Women. All right. So we have a bigger prefrontal cortex. That's where all the executive functioning is housed. We're better with sensory, we're better with language, attention, and pain processing, hence why we are the ones to birth, I'm guessing. So talking for us actually releases oxytocin, and it releases dopamine, which is like our happy hormone. And that causes pleasure, it causes a slower heart rate, and it allows us to better relate to other people. Testosterone, which men have more of, typically impedes that. We're better able to perform in communication and verbal tasks. And we're more interested in analyzing a problem rather than solving it. Can you relate to any of these, Johanna?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've never thought about it, but the multitasking and so on, that definitely speaks to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 100 tabs open at any one time. So.
That's me. That's 100%. Yes, for sure. And like if you get together with your girlfriends, right? If just like a silly example, like so the baby didn't sleep through the night, whereas the husband might be like, it's too cold. Done. Whereas I might get together with my girlfriends, and I'm like, the baby didn't sleep last night. And people are like, did you ever think? And we'll talk about it for an hour. Whereas the men's like, let's do this, let's figure it out, and let's go to the next thing. It's like, no, we actually like the idea of like problem solving, or we like the idea of like analyzing it and figuring it out. Our brains like to chat about it. And our brain actually matures 1 to 2 years before men's do. I talked about this, I think, in the last one, but our female's brain is, large generalization, was fully developed by the age of 28, and men's are 30. So if you are a young mom and you are under the age of 28, there's a good chance your brain isn't fully developed yet, which is kind of cool. That means your brain actually is able to soak in more. It's more of a sponge. We're great at multitasking. We're better at it. We're not great at it, but we're better at it. And we're more wired to move. Our brain communicates with both hemispheres of our brain, and they're more interconnected. We're better at attention, word processing, social cognition, and verbal abilities, our fine motor coordination, and retrieving information from a very long time ago. I often think, do you remember? My mom is amazing at this. She can remember an event from 1992. Remember you had that red shirt on? And I'm like, I have no clue. But her and my sister, incredible memories of very specific things. Whereas I'm not, this is not really for me. But man, women are better at those specific retrieval of information. And we're more oriented toward and have better memories of faces. Kind of fun when we talk about communication, right? So let's get into it. So we're going to be in the process of moving. When we think about healthy communication for our partner, our spouse, whatever you want to call them, we want to move away from the me, and we want to move to we communication. That doesn't mean that I'm not important. I don't hold value, because I do. I'm my own independent person, and my husband is his own independent person. But now that we've chosen to share a life together, we share children together. Now we share a house, a bank account, yada, yada, yada. We're doing life together. I have to be willing, right? I got married June 2nd of 2012. On that day, I decided, and he luckily decided too, that we are going to move away from being 100% Amanda and 100% Matt to we got to move to the we instead of the me. So that automatic response of, well, what about me response, and respond more from a me to we response. So I often think that urgency is your enemy. So when I go to communicate with my partner, you go to communicate with your partner. If I'm feeling elevated, I'm angry, I'm mad, and I immediately want to share that information with him, I want to think in my brain, is this helpful in this moment? If I'm going to yell or scream or lash out, probably not helpful. Breathing is going to be my friend. I'm going to breathe through my nose and out through my mouth. I'm going to take a minute and kind of process, okay, I'm feeling really mad right now. I'm not mad, right? I'm Amanda, but I'm feeling mad right now. And we're going to practice that skill of leaning in, right? Because of the we. I want to communicate with my partner because I don't want to fight, right? I want to go back to the fun stuff. So what this looks like, can look like authentic listening. I want to hear his part of the story, and I don't need to be defensive about it. I just want to hear it for what it is. I want to do a lot of pausing. And then I want to ask what I need. Hey, I'm going to tell you what I need, but I also want to ask what they need too. All right. For me right now, I need a few minutes by myself. That's putting up a boundary. My husband and I did the other night. Today's Wednesday. On Monday night, we had, the kids hadn't gone back to school yet. it was raining. It was we had just a hard day in our house. We were both trying to work. The kids weren't in school. And so we got back on, we put the kids to bed that night. I got on the couch and I was like, hey, can we just talk about today? And my husband did a great job. And he said, you know what? I'm so burnt out. I just need a couple minutes. So like he put up a healthy boundary. He expressed what he needed. And I could either chose to keep going at him, keep poking the bear, or I could choose to say, you know what? I'm going to honor that. And so I did. I said, all right, let's table this. We'll put a pin in it. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning. And then we were able to have a healthy conversation about it because I wasn't so riled up and he was in a space to accept the information that was being shared. So always ask what you need. And I'm very direct about it when I talk with my partner. Like, what do you need from me right now? Because I need this. And then we're willing to put up boundaries. Boundaries are so wonderful. I talk about boundaries, I feel like all day long because it's so healthy too. If I don't put up boundaries, then everybody's going to just take and take and take and take. So being harsh, when we talk about, right, when I go into any sort of conflict that I have with a person, we want to think when we respond in a harsh way, I'm going to ask myself 3 questions. Who did you see do this? So I've seen someone obviously be harsh before. When I say harsh, mean or nasty or yelling, screaming, whatever it might be. Who did I see this happen to? Or, you know, when I obviously witnessed this occur. And then who did it to me? And then who did I do it to and nobody stopped me yet? And then do I want to emulate that person? So if I saw someone in my past and they, maybe an old partner or parent or grandparent, whatever it might be, and I saw them being harsh to their partner, and then right, because of mirror neurons, maybe I mirror that and I reflect that. And then I do it to my partner. Hopefully my partner says, there's no way I'm putting up with this. No, we're not doing this as being harsh. So good question to ask yourself if you feel like you're being harsh with your partner, who did you see do it? Who did it to you? And then who did you do it to when nobody stopped you? Hopefully someone does stop you, but being mindful of that. Do I want to emulate that person? Who do I want to emulate? Think about a marriage that you are impressed by, a marriage you see where healthy communication is happening. What is that marriage doing or that relationship doing that is finding success? I'm going to try to emulate that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And before you react, think of Hall. I do this all the time because I can be all of these. Who am I kidding myself? Ask yourself before I respond, and if I lash out, am I hungry? Which most of the time I am. I feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot to eat lunch again. So am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling tired? If any of those are a yes, then we got to pause because there's a very good chance that I'm going to react harshly if these first needs aren't being met. So just something to think about as you are, as you're planning to react to your partner. So, like I talked about before, John Gottman, obviously this is a big part of couples therapy. We talk about, and obviously he's joking. He's saying the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in relationships and how to stop them in their antidote. So the 4 horsemen of the obviously these ones on the side: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling. Those are the 4 ways people typically respond in a harsh way when we're talking about a conflict. So I've got to be honest, I can do all 4 of these very, very well, right? Hopefully there's a chance that maybe you do too. I'd be intrigued, Johanna, which one do you feel like if you were to get into a tiff and you were to react quickly, which one do you typically tend to go towards?
Stonewalling, I think.
Yeah. I really appreciate your honesty.
It also depends on the person too. I mean, we're talking about relationships, obviously, but we have relationships too with our parents and our children and so on. So I think everybody reacts differently. So you choose, what's most appropriate kind of thing, which isn't appropriate at all. But
yeah, for sure. I completely agree. The audience that I'm going towards, I might react differently. When I'm talking about just spouses, and this is good to know, I think, for any relationship. But yeah, when we're talking about our spouse, I want you to do we call it like a turn and talk, right? Tonight, this is a homework assignment from Amanda. I want you to go to your partner. You can even show them this screenshot and say, like, which one do you think I am? which one do you think you are? And you can share what you think you are and what you think they are. And it's a great conversation starter. Blame it on me. I say that all the time in counseling. When people come in and they're like, oh, I should ask my partner that. I'm like, blame it on me. Tell them, hey, Amanda wants to know what you think of this. So if I had to be one of them, or which one I initially go to, mine would be contempt. I can be, and I'm a pretty sarcastic person, and usually it's to be funny, but I can be sarcastic and it cannot go over well. So we use the example of cleaning, right? So the house is a mess. And I've asked everybody 10 times to pick up all their stuff. And so I'm getting frustrated. So I can do a couple different things. So if I'm going to do one of these 4 ways, I might say, hey, you're so selfish. I'm always the one that cleans. You never do it. I might start to name and call. I might mock, well, great job cleaning up the family room. I might be defensive. I didn't touch any of this. None of this is mine. I shouldn't have to deal with any of it. Or I can stonewall, right? Be cold as ice. I'm going to ignore, avoid. I might leave the house, right? So those don't get me anywhere good, right? They don't. So what we want to do is we want to kind of shift, and you can look at the colored parts on the right-hand side, right? If you typically criticize, we want to start with a gentle startup, and we're going to talk about startup in a few seconds, but starting with the I, right? If I say, Johanna, you never clean up, that just sounds, right? You automatically are probably going to be defensive. If I start with, hey, Johanna, I noticed that the family room still isn't cleaned up. It sounds really different. Name calling. Name calling with contempt, right? I want to remind myself of all the positive qualities about my partner. Hey, you did a really great job. I know last weekend cleaning up. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that you're really trying to help with the laundry around here. I want to build up those positive things. If we're typically defensive, we want to start to take responsibility, right? If I can say to myself, I know I'm not perfect, and Lord knows I'm not, but nobody else is either. I can start to take responsibility for, like, I actually said I was going to clean up the family room, but then we got busy, playing in the other room with the new train tracks. So I'm sorry, and just own it. And then we talk about stonewalling, and I've definitely done stonewalling too. We want to take a break, spend some time doing something self-soothing, and then come back. Hey, I'm going to calm down for a minute, go to the bathroom, take a breath, and then I can come back to the situation. So tonight, I want you to show your partner this and see which one you think they are, see which one you think you are. And it can be pop this on the fridge, right? As a reminder of, like, I need to be better at building a culture of appreciation. And maybe for you, Johanna, you need to be better at practicing that self-soothing, so that I can come back, right? If I stonewall, I got to eventually be able to come back to it.
Yeah. Can you share these slides with us as well, so I can share them with the mummies?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, easy. Obviously, I'm say this again. This was not my information. I didn't do the research. This is all John Gottman. If you go to JohnGottmanInstitute.com, there's a ton of research on there, which is fun to read. And they have this on there. Obviously, this came from the Brene Brown, who I love, podcast. I wish I was friends with all of them. But this information all came from them. But yeah, happy to share for sure. All right. So how to have a healthy conflict.
Amanda, if you have a minute, we have some stuff in the chat that has now disappeared. I can't see it anymore. Can you see it? There's a mom who sent something.
Hey, if you wrote something, write it again. We want to see it.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if it was deleted or if I've done something wrong. Okay, sorry, then we'll move on.
No worries. Hey, to whoever that person is, write it again. We want to hear from you. You guys are really smart people. We want to know what you're thinking. So how to have a healthy conflict. So I said it at the beginning. I say it in every single session when I talk with couples. Conflicts is a good and healthy thing. That means you're two independent people. That's a good thing. I don't want to be my husband, right? I want to still be Amanda because that's who he's in love with. And I don't want him to be Matt because that's who I'm in love with. But having that soft startup makes all the difference in the conflict. So they say the first 3 minutes matter the most. So if I go in guns blazing and I'm screaming, yelling, having a hissy fit, not going to end up probably with a healthy result. But if I go in right with, hey, can I talk with you? I noticed the trash wasn't taken out. Is there a miscommunication here? I thought that it's Tuesday, so the trash goes out on Tuesday, instead of, when we don't want to blame, like, not you didn't take the trash out, because that just doesn't sound friendly. of like, hey, the trash didn't get taken out. I want to get rid of that you word because it always makes it feel like I'm attacking, and that doesn't feel good. I want to describe the situation. Hey, I noticed that it's Tuesday and the trash usually gets taken out this day, and I noticed it's still here and it's starting to stink. And so I'm drawing out the situation. I'm almost painting a picture of what I'm seeing, and trying not to be judging or assuming in it. Be kind. If I can't be kind, I'm going to come back later. I'm going to take a break. Like my husband did the other night. He was like, hey, I need a break. It's like, okay, great. I can totally honor that. Let's talk about it tomorrow morning. And I also don't want to let things build up. Hopefully, right? Someone shared earlier, Johanna, you shared as well. Like you were very fortunate. You married your best friend, somebody who knows you and still loves you for it, right? Like my husband knows me 100%, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and he still chooses me, which I'm very grateful for. But I want to let my feelings out in an appropriate way, because if I let them build up, then I suppress, and then comes out, usually not in a good way. So we know that there are always two parts to every relationship, any relationship that lasts. There's harmony, there's the good stuff that's happening, right? The fun stuff, all the joy. There's disharmony because we know we're two independent people and we're going to have conflict because we're not the same person. But the most important part of a healthy relationship is the repair part. So what is repair? It means opens up for a conversation. We're going to assume that a rupture has happened, like something, right? Disharmony has happened, but we're providing, right, with repair, we're providing a safety net, connection, love, and an opportunity to help that change so this doesn't happen again. So again, we're going to name what happened. Hey, the trash didn't get taken out. I'm going to take responsibility. I did it last week, and so I know we switch weeks. Did I forget? Was I supposed to take it out? It's an opportunity to be vulnerable. And we know, right, Brene Brown, I mentioned her earlier. If you don't know her, she's awesome. Follow her on Instagram or social media. She is a psychologist, and probably a million other titles as well. But she talks about that opportunity to be vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable with people, that's where connections are made. So taking the opportunity to be vulnerable. And then what can I do different for next time? I say this to my kids a million times a day. Things happen, right? Life happens. And I say, well, what can we do different for next time so this doesn't happen again? If we don't repair, then there's suppressed feelings, there's loneliness, and there's a disconnect. And none of those sound fun. I don't want to be a part of those. So how we're going to repair? Repair happens one person at a time. We talked about that defensiveness. If I'm starting to repair with my husband and he's sharing his information, and then I say, well, no, it wasn't my fault. And I immediately go in, I just want to give him an opportunity to share what he's going to say. And I want to be authentically hearing it. Because if in my head, he's talking and I'm just thinking of a rebuttal, it's not helpful. It's just not. So I'm going to recollect what happened, what I'm inferring from the situation, how I felt. And then this is what I need to feel better. So that's what, if it's my partner's turn, he's going to share those things. And all I'm going to do is listen. That is my only job. I literally just need to open my ears and hear what the guy's saying. And we ask that the speaker just be direct. I don't need to be talking about 40 things. Like, this is what's happening. This is what I'm noticing. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I need to help me feel better. So cognitive behavior therapy has been around forever. This is a cognitive behavior triangle. You can see the top is thoughts. The right side is feelings and actions. So we have thoughts, and our thoughts reflect our feelings, and our feelings reflect our actions. So we'll use this as a silly example. We have society's thoughts. What I talked about in the beginning, those silly memes I had, right? That's what society said that marriage was. And then we have the reality of what marriage actually is. So we have two different things that I can take from. I can listen to society about marriage, or I can listen to my own thoughts about marriage. So here's an example. So society says marriage is so easy. Instagram, it's like a date night every single night. So romantic. Everything's perfect. Well, that's not reality, but that is what society might say, or what Instagram might say. So one thought, I know we have a lot of expats on here. Obviously, we're expats as well. So the first thought, another night call. Johanna, does your spouse or your partner have night calls?
Yeah, actually, no, I have more than he does.
But one of you has them, right? That my partner, right, works for, well, doesn't matter who he works for, but yeah, a lot of night calls with the role of the job he has, and a lot of my friends who are expats, or not even expats, even they're Singaporeans. A lot of people have night calls, right? Because we're dealing with Europe, we're dealing with the US, and so we're on wonky times, and so we're trying to work with everybody, which I appreciate. But at some point you might get frustrated. So maybe a thought I put in my brain is another night call. I'm not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous. And I'm starting getting mad. Another thought I could put in my head is I can give one night a week. He has night calls, say 3 nights a week. But if I continue to be so frustrated, I might stonewall, right? That 4th night and be like, I'm not spending time with you. You didn't want to have me the other 3 nights. I'm not going to have you this night. Or I can go to, hey, I can give up one night during the week to chat instead of binge watch Netflix. So I'm moving from me to we. So that's the thought. So Johanna, can I use you as our guinea pig?
Yeah.
So Johanna, pretend this is your thought. You're frustrated. It's another night call. He's not available again. There's no time for you guys to spend time together after the kids go to bed. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm stonewalling. What's the feeling? What's a typical feeling you might have with that thought?
Frustration.
Sure. So what might be an action that comes with frustration?
Withdrawing.
Yeah. Maybe you might avoid, like, I'm not even spending time. I'm going to go out with the girls. I'm going to go fill up my with all sorts of stuff. I'm frustrated. I don't even want to be with you anymore because you've ignored me. I mean, I've ignored you. So doesn't really lead to kind of connection. So say you put this thought in your head. Hey, you know what? The one night a week that he doesn't have night calls, I can continue to watch Netflix, but you know what? I'm actually going to sit and talk with him and do whatever he wants to do so we can do it together. That's a thought I put in my head. What's the feeling that might go along with that?
I don't know. I'd feel more at peace, and I'd feel a little bit generous as well, I guess. You know, I'm giving.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Because it takes 2 to tango. And then what action might come from those feelings of feeling peace and feeling, I'm feeling really generous right now.
What actions?
Yeah. What might come from that feeling?
Well, being more positive in the way I deal with handle my husband, deal with my husband.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So it tells me, right, that might lead to more connection. Right. So the thoughts we put in our head really, really matter. I can look at what society's saying and saying, oh my gosh, I'm so less than. Every night isn't date night. Every night isn't perfect, amazing. Oh, I feel so less than. Oh, now I'm avoiding, or maybe I'm bitter or angry. I can listen to what society says. I can listen to that first thought of, oh, it's all about me. Why doesn't he care about me? And I can put that thought in my head, or I can move to me to we. Hey, you know what? We chose together as a family to move to Singapore. This is one of the things that we're going to have to deal with. My husband's on night calls many nights. This is super frustrating, but the nights he doesn't have calls, I'm going to make it a priority to spend time with him to build that connection. So as you're thinking, this is I didn't make this up. This is cognitive behavior therapy, right? But our cognitions, our thoughts really help frame and shape our actions. So just to be mindful of what thoughts you're putting in your head, right? Because I can either listen to what society says, or I can start to put good thoughts and helpful thoughts inside my head. I do that a lot in therapy. We talk about that. What's your thought process? What are you thinking about? And then from there, what are your feelings? Then what are the actions that come from there? It all matters. Really, really, really matters. So, like I said, I'm Amanda Sheriff from Let's Thrive Therapy. You can find me on my website, on Instagram. I love working with women, going through change, anxiety, and relationships. And I feel so thankful that you would let me come on and spend time with you today, Johanna.
Amazing. Thank you, Amanda. I'm sure we have a lot of questions as well, or we might have. I'm hoping that mummies, you take this opportunity to speak to Amanda directly. You can either put them in the chat. Maybe we stop screen sharing for a minute.
Sure.
And mummies, let us hear what you thought. We've got about 20 mummies on the call, so that's really great. Maybe you want to share your own experiences, your own challenges in your relationships as well, and ask Amanda's advice, I guess, or her thoughts on it.
Yeah, happy to answer anything. we know that marriage is amazing. And I'm so, so grateful for the opportunity, right? To have a life partner. Like I said, we've been together over half our lives at this point. But also it takes a ton of work. And the days I don't put in work, it shows hand over fist. Oh my gosh, a million times over. So I need to keep showing up for myself. I need to keep showing up for him too. And for us, for the we part.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Anyone who would like to share? I would love to hear from you, mummies. There was someone else. I'm so sorry. I missed your message. I wanted to wait for the next slide, but maybe this person had to leave the call. So I'm not sure. But if you're still on, please let us hear what you had to say. Otherwise, also share about your best thing about marriage, hardest thing about marriage. Happy to hear that as well. That would be nice. Anything else you can share in the meantime? How you work with clients as well? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Vanessa. How do you deal with differences in raising a child? So different approaches to parenting. That's a really good one.
That's a really good question. And that is every single, even if you're not, whatever it might be, your partner, right? Because the one person came from one family and that culture, even if they're the same culture, right? Like me and my husband are both Americans. We actually grew up in the same town, but man, we had totally different upbringings. And so how to manage that? Sure. Like we want to take the best of both. And so, yeah, I would think having like a frank conversation outside of the feeling, right? So if there's a huge meltdown in the house, that's not a great time to have that form of communication outside of the feeling. Like, hey, let's table this. Let's put a pin in it, whatever you might say, and talk about this when we're both calm tomorrow or this weekend or on date night. So I think the best time to have that conversation is outside of the feeling. And then how to deal with the differences. Sure. Still honoring, right, that you hopefully chose this partner, that you love them for who they are. And so they brought baggage and you brought baggage. And so being mindful of how to take the good and the bad. Yeah. And maybe backing it up with like research, right? Like, hey, I really am a firm believer. I know gentle parenting is like the term that everybody's using right now, but right, like yelling doesn't ever help. I've never yelled at my kid and been like, that really worked, right? And I've done it. I'm 100% guilty of it. 100 for sure. But yeah, if we're yellers in the house, that doesn't lead to connection. And so what's going to lead me back to connection? Yeah, that repair piece. Sure. So I think, Vanessa, you asked a really good question. I think like looking at research and seeing what is good and sharing that. But then also talking about the issue outside of the problem, outside of the feeling.
Mm-hmm. There's another question, which I love. How to deal with a phase where you feel empty and feel like there's nothing to talk about, whereas you're in a good marriage otherwise.
For sure. I'm guessing this person, I don't know who you are, but I'm guessing this person, right, has a new baby and they're just like or just children and you're just in the thick of it, feeling like, oh, there's like nothing to talk about. I'd be curious. And I'll steal this idea. This is actually a client told me this the other day. They go on wellness dates now. They're trying new things.
Okay.
She's like, we don't really want to drink anymore, right? Like we're trying to that, and eating out is so expensive now. And so we go on like wellness dates. Like they went hiking the other day, like trying new activities. Like, hey, we've never done this before in Singapore. Let's try it. Yeah. Let's do the cable cars, right? We've never done this before, right? Trying new things, I think, right, to keep the spark alive. Yeah, you feel like that you feel empty and there's nothing really to talk about. Trying a new activity or bringing something new into like, hey, I read this new book, read it, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well with relationships. I think you get so wrapped up in parenting that all you talk about is the kids. And then you sit at a table in a restaurant and you're like, what do we talk about now? Like, it's easy for parenting to really overtake everything else and your relationship,
100 times over. Yeah, I need to remember that. Yeah, I'm mom, but I'm also Amanda. And I'm not even just a therapist, right? I'm Amanda, just me as my own identity. Yeah. So I help women a ton with finding their own identity again, or figuring out who they are as a new version of themselves. Yeah. We're always in the process. My favorite word in the whole world right now is becoming, right? Because we're always in the process of becoming. Right. There's no end to there's no finite period to oh, now I'm just a mom for the rest of my life. I am, but I'm also so much more than that. And so are you.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. What if one person sees that there is a problem in the relationship and the other one doesn't acknowledge it? How do we address this together?
For sure. Yeah, great question. Hey, I'm noticing this. And we're talking about it, right? We're talking about the issue outside of the feeling, right? So if you're in a fight, that's not the time to talk about it. Time to talk about it is when you're in a safe, calm, connected space. People are asleep, your kids are asleep, wherever it might be. Yeah, it's like, this is the problem. And this is the evidence I have to back it up. Hey, I'm really noticing this issue. Trying to think of an issue. If you can think of one, Johanna, please feel free to. Like the house is always dirty. I'm really seeing it as an issue and it's bothering me. I grew up in a very, very tidy house, or I grew up in a really, really messy house and it really bothers me. Right? They say like the millennial minimalist. I'm a millennial minimalist. I don't have a darn thing in this house. I feel like I need to probably keep more stuff. But some people might want to have stuff all over the house, right? So when there's stuff around, that's junk on the floor, it drives me nuts. And so if my partner doesn't agree with that, like, hey, for me, this is really triggering because my house was like this growing up. I really, really like I really want it to be like this, right? Come up with evidence as why you feel like it's a problem now.
Okay. We have another question. How do you get your husband to understand when you ask or remind him to do things and it doesn't come across as nagging? He seems to think if I say it 3 times over a period, it's immediately nagging, but he needs a PA essentially or nothing gets done. Yeah. That can so much relate to that. Yeah. Oh my God. So many light bulbs changing in the house.
Yes. I hear you. Whoever just said that. Yes. 100%. I'd be wanting to work like, hey, what works best for you? You don't want me to tell you, like, is it helpful? We have a giant whiteboard in our house. Is it helpful to write on the whiteboard? Do you want me to put it into the family calendar? Like what works best? What's going to work for you? And then also, right, I've reminded you once that the kids get picked up at whatever, 3:30 from school. So maybe I remind once and then then maybe we have to pay the late fee. If he's late by 10 minutes, he'll get right. There's the natural consequence. I love natural consequences. And not in a mean way, but I really do, right? If I touch the stove with my hand, I'm going to get burnt, right? But I had to learn that at some point, right? That stove's hot. And if I wanted to test it, ouch, now I got burnt. So the natural consequences that come along with it. Sometimes you want to let things kind of play out and say like, if you forgot to buy the milk, that means you don't get to have your coffee with milk tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Sorry that like I really am. I'm sorry that happened, being totally authentic and honest. But sometimes we want to let the natural consequences I'm using this as a huge generalization, let them play out. Because I don't want to nag either. Nagging it's so much work. Because it requires my brain to think, oh my gosh, I want to remind him again about da-da-da-da. Instead, I'm going to ask him, like, hey, what's the best way to remind you? At work, you seem to get all this stuff done. Is it because it's in an email? Maybe I know I like to write stuff down. I write loads of stuff on our whiteboard because it works for me. Because if I don't write it down, it's like it doesn't happen. But that's me, but that might not be your family. So I would ask him, what's the best way to communicate and let natural consequences play out?
Yeah, that's actually a really good topic in itself, because we've had this come up a number of times. And people have found different ways of organizing themselves or keeping each other accountable, or whatever you want to call it. So we had one mom who suggested to have different WhatsApp chats with her husband for different things. So one would be restaurants they want to go to. Another one is things pertaining to their upcoming travel. Another one is things to do with the school. So that can be a way, for example. Or we use Todoist, I think it's called, an app, and we have a family sort of checklist or whatever you call it. And so we know, okay, these are the tasks. You can assign owners to it as well. And then you tick them off when they're done. And so that's the way my husband thinks. And so this is what we've adopted. It really works for him. So I think there's some clever tools out there now, and maybe if you can share what you use, because I think this can really help you stay on track and stay focused as well.
If something's working, put it in the chat, please. And Johanna can read it loud. Yeah, there's an app for everything now. Honestly, I swear there is. I'm old school. I like writing things out, but that's me and that's what our family does. But yeah, for sure. I think natural consequences, then asking what works best for you, because what works best for my partner might not work best for me. So
yeah, absolutely.
If I don't ask him, he can't know.
Yeah. Amazing. Anything else, mummies? You have your chance to speak to Amanda. Let's hear it. Oh, someone says agreed on using different WhatsApp chat groups for different topics, house stuff, baby stuff. Yeah, I think it really keeps you on track. And it makes it easier to find it for myself as well. Like I have so many different WhatsApp chats and so many different moms getting in touch and so on. It's difficult to find where you've posted stuff. So even within the family, we have different subgroups as well. So yeah, whatever works for you. But yeah, absolutely use what you use in your professional life. Why wouldn't you? You know, it's
we actually my husband and I have talked about this many times, right? Like you and I, right, Johanna, you and I planned a meeting to talk about this chat we were having. And then we planned to do this, right? We put in a meeting, I put it in my calendar, it was here. But sometimes in marriage, we don't do that.
yes.
And it's kind of it doesn't really make sense. Like when I pull myself back and I think about like, oh, Matt and I need to talk about this, or we need to plan for this. But then it's like, I'm doing it on a whim instead of being like, hey, you know what? When the kids go to bed tonight from 8 to 8:15, I really want to talk about my new family that's coming over, and like what we get to rent a bit, you know, whatever it is. But like set him a meeting. And it sounds ridiculous to plan a meeting with your husband, but I did it with you.
Yeah.
My spouse, right? That why couldn't we do it with her husband? So my husband and I actually really started planning these like meetings, like, hey, let's meet at da-da-da or talk about this. And Matt literally, or my partner, puts it in his calendar. And then so it's on our family chat. I was like, great, I have a meeting today at 3:00 because we have to order more furniture. Great. Now I know.
Yeah. And then I love what you said about, you know, how different our brains were, and how the female prefrontal cortex is much more developed. And therefore we can multitask and all of that. So, and then the other thing is too, it's about priorities and importance. If something isn't important, it's like my son has ADD, and they're talking about, they're calling it erectile dysfunction of the brain. It's if it doesn't interest me, if I'm not passionate about it, I can't get it up. You know, I won't be spending time on it, or I won't be giving it much importance. And I think it's all about priorities in the relationship as well. Like to me, it's really important that all the light bulbs are in, but my husband doesn't seem to notice it that much, right? So yeah, so that's a challenge too.
What a good point. Yeah, for sure.
We have a mom saying maybe it will be good to share this webinar with our partners and look at it with them and find ideas for better communication. That's really good. So this mom has a Google Doc. So they share ideas of things to do with each other. And she says with a newborn, it's honestly impossible. So obviously everything changes. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. I will share the recording of this with you in the groups, in the different WhatsApp groups. So absolutely, you know, go and look at it with your partners. We would love that for sure. As a counselor, what are some signs that a couple has a good marriage? Or I guess the flip side, that it's not working so well?
Sure. Well, here's the best thing is that my opinion only matters in the context of the counseling relationship. So yeah, I'd want to know from both people, right? Are you feeling heard? Are you feeling loved? Are you feeling seen? Those would all be good signs of a marriage. And are you guys having fun together? Are you laughing? Do you laugh every day? You know, when you see each other, like, are you laughing pretty consistently, or even just like smiling, or just like enjoying a conversation where you feel like you can be open and honest with that person? I think those would be a really good signs of a marriage. And we know, and I'll be the first to say it for sure, marriages go through hills and valleys. And I'm a therapist, right? I know all the facts of what to do, but the reality is I'm a human too. And so we've totally had valleys and we've totally had hills, and both were necessary for us to build the strong marriage that we have now. But that doesn't mean we're probably, at some point, we're going to hit another bump in the road, because life's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I feel too that when you have conflict, it's almost like with a toddler. Sometimes you're all talked out, like there's no point using words anymore. And what I would use with my kids always, say, do you need a hug? And just hug and feel that intimacy, and then feel why you're together with this person really, really helps. Sometimes speaking is not the best tool.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, reminding yourself of like, why did I choose this person, and what qualities do they have that I'm maybe still working on, right? My husband has a bunch of qualities that I don't have yet, that by being with him, right? Mirror neurons, the more I spend time with him, the more I get better at that skill because of mirror neurons, and we copy what we see. So yeah, reminding yourself of why you chose that person. If you're in a bump right now and you're having a hard time, you remind yourself of why you chose that person and the good qualities they currently have.
Okay, amazing. Someone in the group is saying, please give us some tips to deal with anger issues in marriage and parenting.
Parenting. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's nothing. I was with a client the other day and we were talking about parenting, and I said, this person has a role outside the house as well. She has a 9 to 5 job. And I was like, I said, tell me about your job. So she was telling me about it. And I said, it sounds like it's pretty organized. Like you go to work, you have meetings, you answer the emails, you collaborate, you create a product. And she was like, yeah, that's what I do. And I said, parenting is the polar opposite. It's the most chaotic thing I have personally ever done in my entire life, right? 1 minute we're playing with the trains, the next we're having a meltdown about the trains. The next minute we love, playing Paw Patrol and singing the song. The next minute we hate the Paw Patrol song. So it's like, it's so chaotic and crazy. And we're created for ritual and routine, right? Now as we're starting this new year, right? We crave ritual and routine. We crave consistency, and parenting is a lot of craziness. And so, yeah, no wonder that the anger issues come up, because we want to have control. We were created, right, to have consistency, to have a calm and safe life. And so that survival mode kicks in. So some tips and tricks on dealing with anger issues. I say this out loud to my kids too, like, oh, I feel like I'm going on a roller coaster right now, meaning I'm getting really, really upset. Like, oh, I'm starting to go on a roller coaster. Uh-oh, this doesn't feel good to me when I'm talking to my kids. So they know mom's allowed to get mad, and she does get mad. I get disappointed or whatever it might be. But when it comes to anger, taking that pause, I think pausing is probably the biggest gift I can give myself, and I can also give my family. Hey, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to be a minute. And I'm just going to give myself that minute in the bathroom to calm my body down. Because then when I go out again, when I come back into the family room, I have a moment of peace. And then I can think logically, like, okay, this is what happened. This is what I want to happen next. And I can be proactive instead of being so reactive.
Mm-hmm. This is now the last thing we are going to cover. I would like to see if you have any tips for moms who haven't given birth yet, or who are even only just on their fertility journey. Because I sort of think, is there something we can do to prepare for this change in our relationship, for this big event, to be a little bit more prepared and basically get our ducks in a row before the shit hits the fan? Sorry, I didn't want to say that, but yeah.
Before things like go completely awry or go crazy. Yeah. Yes. I think having an honest, raw conversation about, like, hey, when things get really bad and things happen, like, how can I help you? How can I walk alongside you in this? Because I might want to run away. Like, my natural instinct is to avoid. And so how can I come back in? What do we do when you get really, really mad? How can I help you in that? And try to be proactive in, that's a huge topic, but yeah, I would say, like, right, being reactive usually doesn't lead to a lot of good things. Being proactive can lead to healthier things. So yeah, I would have some raw, probably ugly conversations now of, like, what do we want this to look like? When it's 4 a.m. and no one has slept and I'm about to, like, jump out the window, what do we want to do? I'm going to say, can you please take the baby for 5 minutes? And I'm going to take a break and I'm going to come back. I need that 5 minutes, like, asking for what you need, and also setting up boundaries for yourself.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Thank you. I think this is the end of our chat this morning. Can you just please say how people can get in touch with you, where you practice, and all of that?
I know, yeah, minor details. So I'm in Singapore. So I'm located in River Valley. I'm a one-man show. So if you email me, I'll be emailing back. If you text me, I'll be the one texting you back. I always do a 15-minute, it's a 10 to 15 minute, it's free intro call, because I really don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste my time either. If I can't help you, I'm going to find somebody who can. So I always do the free 15-minute intro call. I do online, and then my office is in River Valley. And so either of those places are great. I do both each week. So both are, it's really whatever's convenient for you. We know in 2024, we have to be flexible, and especially being parents, we have to be flexible. So I've had more times than I can count. You know, I have a noon call and it's 11 a.m. and someone's like, hey, I just cannot get out of my house today. And I'm like, great, let's just do online. Awesome. There's freedom to do it. And the research shows, and we have a lot of research from COVID, unfortunately, that shares that they're both effective, both highly effective. Talk therapy in person and talk therapy online, both are great. So I always do the free 10-15-minute phone call. You can find me on my website, Let's Thrive Therapy. You can find me on Instagram, Let's Thrive Therapy. And my information's all on there. You can email me or text, whatever works best for you.
Amazing. That sounds great. And I'll post your contact details as well with the link to the recording as well.
You're the best. Thanks so much.
Lots of thank yous in the group, and a big thank you from me as well. I think it was a really helpful session. As always, Amanda, thank you so much for spending your morning with us.
You are the best.
Mummies for joining. Okay, see you next week. Bye-bye.